Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now from Asbury Park, New Jersey is pollster, political analyst, and best-selling author Scott Rasmussen. He is the founder and president of Rasmussen Reports. And Scott, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be with you. All
right, let's start with the IRS scandal. It's just one of several surrounding the Obama administration right now. How do you see all of these scandals impacting the president directly in terms of his job approval numbers? And is the ground beginning to shift from underneath the president?
Well, in terms of the president's job approval, his numbers are still holding up. Now, I'm convinced that's because he came to Asbury Park this past week. You know, it's the home of Rasmussen Reports, but it probably has more to do with just the nature of this presidency. Democrats continue to strongly support him. Republicans strongly oppose, and unaffiliated voters somewhere in between. We do see some signs there are problems, potential problems being created for the president. Now, some people argue his job approval ratings have already been hurt because they should be going up. The economy is getting stronger, the stock market is setting records, and the president's job approval not going anywhere. No real way to prove or disprove that theory. But when we look at a question, say, who do you trust more on issues of ethics and corruption? Used to be the Democrats had a big edge, an 8-point edge on the issue, but now with the scandals and controversies, the Republicans have a slight advantage. So there's been a 10-point swing on that. The president's numbers on national security have fallen in the past couple of weeks. Another indicator that, maybe something is beginning to happen. We do know that people are concerned about the scandals. 57% believe that the IRS really did target people. And they don't buy the notion that it was some low-level people in the Cincinnati office. 65% believe the decisions came from Washington, either the IRS headquarters or the White House.
So is Barack Obama now viewed as less trustworthy?
He has so far stayed above the fray personally. His agenda is in trouble. The seeds are there, perhaps, for potential problems down the road. But we're very early in this process. I spoke to Mark Tapscott from the Washington Examiner, and he said that their papers begin to try and find out just who authorized the IRS targeting and how far up did it go. Well, until we know information like that, it's hard to know how this will impact the president. We do know that his overall effort, his desire, his whole public life has been spent on the mission of trying to restore faith in the federal government, trust in the federal government. That was an uphill fight to begin with. It's probably an unwinnable fight at this point.
So what about insisting on the resignation of Attorney General Eric Holder? Could that actually help the president save face, if you will, with the American electorate, restore that trust?
Some action will probably have to be taken along the way. It could be asking for the resignation of Eric Holder, although indications are the president doesn't want to go in that direction. I saw Jay Carney saying it's clearly Holder was speaking truthfully to Congress. He's denying any of the allegations of perjury. The president continues, at least publicly, to have confidence in the Attorney General. That will be a big issue. If he is pushed aside, it could go in either direction. It could unleash the floodgates and more people begin to open up and talk, which would be bad for the president. Or it could be seen as a sign of, the president let go one of his close associates because something was wrong. Let's give him a break.
Mm-hmm. Now, Republicans are already saying they want to use the scandals in 2014 after the drubbing of 2012 that prompted that GOP autopsy. Do you see these scandals actually helping the grand old party in the next election?
Look, all the autopsy and all the stuff that Republicans were talking about sort of missed the point. The biggest issue that's going to help the Republicans is going to be the Democrats. Parties in power tend to make mistakes, and people focus on them. I think the mood right now is marginally in favor of the Republican Party, certainly not as extreme as it was in November of 2010, their big midterm victory, but we are seeing some parallels. In the last 5 weeks, Republicans have been ahead on the generic congressional ballot twice, Democrats 3 times. We saw that same kind of balance going back and forth in April and May of 2009, and then gradually the Republican wave began to build. So we'll be watching over the summer. If the scandals pick up, and the generic ballot begins to move in the Republican direction, you'll say definitely that's going to help. But you got to remember, there's also other issues out there. The president's health care law is going to be implemented. It's likely to run into some administrative hurdles, some bureaucratic issues, but it's also running into the fact that it has never become popular. And that's going to be a pretty healthy drag on Democrats in the 2014 elections. I think the odds are right now that the Republicans will gain seats in the Senate. We don't know how many. It is possible, but at the high end, very high end of their expectations, Republicans could win control of the Senate. And I have to put all that in the context of the Republicans should have made gains in the Senate in 2012, except for their recruiting follies. So, we don't quite know where that's going to play out.
President Obama last night said that the Democrats have a great chance to retake the House in 2014. Do you agree or disagree with that assessment?
I believe the president is being a great morale booster and cheerleader for his party. It's exactly what he should be saying. The facts are not supporting it. Larry Sabato at the University of Virginia has a model that estimates the Democrats to gain control of the U.S. House would have to have a 12 or 13 point advantage on the generic congressional ballot. And as I said earlier, right now the two parties pretty even on that measure. It's very difficult. Nothing's impossible in politics. Republicans could always blow it and do something really to give the Democrats an advantage. But barring something way outside of the norm, the Republicans are going to be in control of the House after the 2014 elections.
Getting back to the Senate, it's still very early. Which races will you be watching closely?
I think rather than individual races, I'm going to be looking at groups of races. There are states where Democrats are running or where Democratic incumbents have retired that Mitt Romney won big. About 6 of those states, and the Republicans need to get good candidates and be in a position to take those states if they want to have a shot at winning control. So I'll be watching the mood in those states. Mitch McConnell is one of the few Republicans who is seen to be in danger. We'll be watching to see if the Democrats can field a strong candidate to make that a reality. I think it's fair to say that McConnell is in a much stronger position today than many thought he would be just a couple of months ago.
Scott, I'd like to get your quick take on some of the Republicans whose names have been mentioned as presidential possibles in 2016. Can you give us a one-sentence take on their prospects, beginning with former Florida Governor Jeb Bush?
Jeb Bush is not going to be the Republican nominee. Too much baggage with his name.
What about Marco Rubio? Is immigration helping or hurting him with Republicans?
The immigration debate has hurt Marco Rubio with Republicans, but it has not become politically toxic yet.
What about Chris Christie and his embrace of Barack Obama?
Chris Christie is my governor. He was with the president here in Asbury Park just a few days ago. It is very hard to see how he becomes the Republican nominee. He might have some appeal. He might even put New Jersey in play as a state for the GOP in the general election, but not likely to be the nominee.
And what about Rand Paul and Paul Ryan?
Rand Paul has some work to do. He has an excited, powerful base. Some of it inherited from his father, some of it developed on his own. He's shown some better political instincts than his father. He is going to be fighting for a new face of the GOP, particularly on national security issues. Rand Paul is a serious contender. Paul Ryan recently passed Nancy Pelosi in terms of negatives. More people have an unfavorable opinion of Paul Ryan than they do of Nancy Pelosi today. The Budget Committee chairman's position is not a great place to run for president. This is a man who commands respect and loyalty from a lot of the Republican base. I think he will be influential in determining the nominee, but he himself is not likely to be the nominee.
And what do you think about Ted Cruz?
Ted Cruz is the wild card in the mix right now. He was not supposed to be the Hispanic Latino candidate who would come up. That was going to be Marco Rubio. Ted Cruz is getting a lot of attention, a lot of anger from Republican opponents. I think he is going to be a fascinating person to watch. Not sure how this will play out at all.
The Democratic nomination is said to be Hillary Clinton's if she wants it. Do you really see Hillary winning the nomination in 2016? And will things like these scandals and Benghazi hurt her?
Well, I can remember, I just read somebody who said no candidate has ever had such a commanding lead as Hillary Clinton does right now. Actually, Hillary Clinton had this commanding a position 8 years ago. Nobody had ever heard of Barack Obama, at that time. I have a very hard time believing Hillary Clinton will be the Democratic nominee. Benghazi is certainly not going to help, but I think there will be other factors. We just don't know what the Democratic field is going to look like. The benefit of being a Republican in today's world is that the field is wide open because there's nobody at the top. Right now on the Democratic side, whether you're Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Martin O'Malley, or anybody else, you have to be respectful of the fact that Barack Obama is president of the United States. He is the leader of your party, so you can't really campaign as you will in a couple of years. And look, with all of this, it's very important to remember nobody knows what's going to happen in 2016. That's a lifetime in politics. I think you asked me about a number of senators. I think governors are certainly going to be a possible. Scott Walker is somebody who could emerge. I don't know who else would emerge, but it's likely that we're going to be trying to find, people are unhappy with both parties. They're going to be trying to find different alternatives.
The last question for you, Scott. How have public perceptions of the Tea Party changed since we learned that the IRS has been harassing conservative groups, including Tea Party groups?
The Tea Party right now is viewed favorably by 44% of voters nationwide. That's up 14 points from before the targeting, so that's a big boost. And by the way, the IRS numbers went in the opposite direction, not terribly surprising. What we're seeing, and I think this is the most significant part of the Tea Party numbers, 80% of Republicans now have a favorable opinion of the Tea Party. That's a big jump. There's been this divide between the Republican establishment who really wanted to protect themselves from the Tea Party, and then the Tea Party and the grassroots base of the Republican Party. Now the IRS has put them all on the same team, and that unity could not have been achieved in any other way.
All right, Scott Rasmussen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.